Hello, good morning, Herempowered Tribe. How are you doing today? As promised, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we just celebrated Mother's Day, and we all know how hard mothers work. And women in general, we are, face some specific mental health issues that is very relevant to our gender just because we are females. So, sex and gender differences are important detriments of mental health and mental illness. Mental health issues is usually a combination of genetics and the role and experience a person has in society. So, being female, because of our body being different than obviously our male counterparts, we do face very unique challenges that is very specific to female gender. There are different factors that affects mental health in women. If I keep looking down, it's because I've written a few notes there. So bear with me as I'm looking down because I just want to make sure that I'm covering everything with you. One of the factors that affect women's mental health is things like negative life experiences. Women especially, are more prone to infertility, perinatal loss, poverty, discrimination, domestic violence, which is linked to isolation, and unemployment. These are some of the issues that women face in general. Obviously, there are other factors that goes into it, which I will share a little bit of my story and how we are affected in those different ways. But statistics shows that 1 in 5 women have a common mental health problem, such as anxiety and depression. 19% of women suffer from mental health problems. Women are more likely than men to be caretakers, which can lead to stress, anxiety, and isolation. So, women in general are are at a higher rate of feeling burnt out because they have to be so many things to so many people, and which is why I stress the importance of self-care. And self-care differs from person to person, so depending on the kind of self-care you practice, it affects how you feel, it affects your mental well-being. And I think the most important thing is a lot of women do not recognize when they are facing with possible mental health issues because they are so used to living in such a way that is stressful. They kind of blend into it that they don't recognize that some of those what do you call it, signs of mental health burnt out, because it didn't come to them that they're suffering from that. So there are a few things that I can share. One of the few common situation that women deal with, especially for moms, is the mommy guilt, and the work-life balance, especially during the COVID situation. And there's just so many on and off situation that has been happening where a lot of moms are taking time away from work. In fact, some of them have quit their jobs entirely so that they can care for the family. And obviously, with that, there's a shortage of income, which would lead to monetary stress. And the other thing is, just balancing having to have a full-time job and taking care of a family can be very stressful. I can definitely share my own experience where I was working full-time, and I am still working full-time, but I'm now working from home. I had a career where it's very demanding, and I do oversee several people, and being in command all the time and having to be caretakers at work and at home had taken quite a toll on me. And I don't realize that because it's a very insidious way of sneaking into our lives where, you are fine at first and you're doing it so much, so often and every day that it becomes like a normal thing, but it's really not a normal thing. People shouldn't be feeling burnt out or feeling lack of joy or feeling just mentally exhausted. feeling like they are not thriving but just surviving. I think a lot of women are in a phase where they are not exactly thriving, they are just surviving to get, from day to day. And especially if you're a full-time mom, you struggle with mommy guilt. I struggle with mommy guilt. In a earlier time of our marriage, because of my career, I don't get off work very early, and so my husband kind of has to be the mom, and he has to take my kids to sports. He has to make dinner, and I wouldn't say like it affected our marriage, but it definitely affected me, feeling like I'm not contributing like a normal woman would, like, making the traditional wife, where you prepare a meal for your family, you kind of run the house, and you take your kids to sports. And there were times where I have to miss my kids' games because I was tied up at work. And and in the morning, when I have to hurry to get myself ready to go to work, that is stressful too, because I get a little short tempered with my kids. I'm sure all of us are guilty of that. We're not perfect, but those are things that kind of sneak at you. Or when you have days where your kids are not feeling the best, or they are just having some emotional difficulties, and they just want to stay home, and you have your obligation to show up at work, and so you can't say take the day off to spend time with them. And those are things that I struggle with a lot, and I think it adds up to the mental health stress that I suffer from, because I'm trying so hard to be best at both worlds, being a professional that is great at my job, and being wanting to be a great mom for my children, and wanting to be a great wife to my husband. It can be very challenging to juggle all of that. But I think as I evolve in my journey and come to be more mindful and be more aware of those sneaky mommy guilt that I feel, I come to terms with understanding that life happens, and as much as I want to be everything to everybody, I have to be also aware of my limitations of what I can or cannot give. And when I am mentally exhausted and physically exhausted, to be okay with asking for help, and be okay with forgiving myself for not meeting my expectations for myself. The other thing that I also have experience with, and I think a lot of stay-at-home moms have experience with, is basically being like the caretaker of the house full time. So at one point in my life, I was a stay-at-home mom, and it can be a very, very isolating experience, because as much as a lot of people's perception that it's there shouldn't be any stress. You're home, you take care of the kids, you can wake up whenever you want, you are in control of your time. I have been a stay-at-home mom for years, when my older kids were younger. And my oldest daughter is 22 years old now, and that means that was 22 years ago that I was a stay-at-home mom. It could be very stressful because you can't escape from the kids, and not all kids are quiet, and kids are going to be rambunctious. They're gonna be, they're going to test your patience. They're going to, I think kids really teach us a lot about ourselves and our patience. And it was not easy because I was always home by myself, because I have no coworkers to hang out with. And when you're fighting with your husband, or you're stressing out about the kids, you don't necessarily have an outlet to kind of share those struggles with. So that could be a very stressful and challenging time for stay-at-home moms. And I think it's really hard to practice self-care when you are stay-at-home mom too, because you are constantly surrounded by your children, and you're constantly surrounded by what you have to do at home. And that can be a big struggle for a lot of people to feel like they can get out, because the place that people want to get out, which is to go home, that's your full-time job. And so essentially there really isn't an escape for the responsibility as a stay-at-home mom, and it's really hard to disconnect from that role as a caregiver of your children, caregiver of your husband, and caregiver of the house. It is really hard to separate yourself from that identity. And I think as women, we need to be able to separate our roles from who we are. And sometimes those over time get kind of, like blended in together. But I think we should be able to separate them, where if it's time for me to just do self-care, then I at that moment I should disconnect myself as a mom and as a caregiver, because my caregiving should be to myself when I go and take time for myself. And I think that especially for women who are stay-at-home mom, because they have kids who are medically ill, and there's a lot of caregiving that's involved. There's a lot of heightened urgency to make sure that the kids are safe, that they are not having any medical emergencies. It's not something that you can see on the outside, but I can tell you that the mom is probably really stressed out all day long. Just being on high alert can be very draining on your body and very draining on your mental health too as well. And then the other aspect is the single moms. I was a single mom for a while, and it is very stressful because you already feel guilty for not giving your kids a whole family, because obviously you got a divorce, or for whatever reason you do not have a partner, and so because you're a single mom, you have to have a full-time job, and it's not like you can bounce off of a partner where like right now, if I'm not feeling the best, my partner can fill in for me to make dinner, to clean the house, to pick up the kids, to sports, whatever. When you're a single mom, you're it. There is no fallback, there is no backup plan, especially even more so if you do not have family support, especially in America, where your family might be in a different state and they can't just come and help you, and you are pretty much on your own. I myself, my family is in Singapore, and I do not have my side of the family to be here for me, and so I have to be enough in myself to be able to take care of the family. And being a single mom is very stressful because you kind of have to be the mom and the dad, and you have to be worried about the basic necessities, because instead of having the burden shared financially with a partner where both people are bringing home income, you are just stressing on your own, with expenses, with bringing home the money, with paying the bills, with taking care of the kids. I mean, that is a lot on one person. And especially if you have multiple children, obviously the stress adds up. And for my kids, I know how much money goes into sports or into extra things, or if they have a medical situation where you have to be able to pay for your medical bills. Like, all those stresses add up. And being a single mom, I think it's hard to disconnect again from that role, because you are it, especially if you have younger kids and they can't stay home by themselves. You have to be it, and it's very, very hard for a single mom to disconnect, because you almost are chained to the role. And it can be very hard to say, I want to do this for myself right now, because there is no one else but you, and you have to care for your children because they can't care for themselves. And so these are all very specific, relevant mental health issues that women face, right? Because we are the moms. And for some women, for myself, I had medical issue where I was in very constant pain, like period pain. And I didn't know what it was, but I just know that I'm always in pain, and I'm always tired, and I'm always, sad. And I found out, and what happened was I had like an endless cycle of menstrual period. Like every other week, I'm having my period, and over time, it got, first I have to deal with the pain, and second I have to deal with my period that never seemed to end, and on top of that, it's a very, very heavy period, and it really took a mental toll on me, because I have no idea what was going on with my body, and I just knew that I'm having my period all the time. And you know how it's like when you have menstrual period, you don't necessarily have to have menstrual pain, but it's it's blah, you know, you don't feel good, and you feel like you're constantly, that's how I feel like I was like slave to my menstrual period. And then we found out that I had adenomyosis, which is the uterine lining growing inside your uterus, which is why I have so many periods, like weeks and weeks, because when my uterine lining outside sheds, then I would have my period, and then when the uterine lining inside my uterus sheds, I have period again. So that I keep having period, although they are from different places. It seems like it's like never ending constant cycle of period, tampons, pads, whatever you want to call it. It's just not good. And then I found out that the only solve to this heavy menstrual period and constant period problem is to get a hysterectomy, which I personally experienced the challenge. For some women, you think that having a hysterectomy is just taking the uterus out, but for me, especially, I can speak for myself, is that there is this mental turmoil of, to me, the uterus represent womanhood, and now I have to take my uterus out, and obviously I have given birth to 5 healthy living babies, and some few of them have gone out to be adults now, but that still doesn't take away how I feel when when I have to come to terms that the only fix to my menstrual period problem is to have a hysterectomy. And that was really hard on my mental health, because I was struggling with, do I do that? Do I not? Would I not feel womanly enough after that? And those are all mental health challenges that we face that is very invisible to the naked eye. From someone looking out at you, they will not know that you're struggling with that. But as women, these struggles are real, and these struggles are very private. And I know how it took a toll on me, feeling really depressed, because I feel like I am so slave to my body, because we as women, we have menstrual period. And then for some other women, they might struggle with infertility, where they are trying so hard to get pregnant, and the only one thing they want in their life is to have babies, and they seem to struggle at that. And for some women, that also defines their womanhood, because for me, my uterus defined me as as a woman, and I was lucky enough to be able to bear children. But for some people, struggle the opposite way, where I have a uterus, but it's not working. I'm not having a kid. I'm not pregnant, and they struggle with that identity issue. And so I wanted to bring to light all these different woman health issues that is specific to women, because we have a unique set of challenges that men don't face. And so we have to take extra care of ourselves, learn to say no, learn to identify the signs, and learn to be able to practice, self-care, and learn to ask for help. I think as women, we are such caregivers and caretakers that we don't necessarily think of ourselves as needing help, because we are the ones that should be offering help to others. But know that although to you in the moment it doesn't seem like a big deal, or I can deal with it, but like I said, it's a insidious slippery slope that you go into, where it eventually escalates to where I went into deep depression, because I had workplace bullying happening, I had my menstrual issue happening, I had pain going on, and I had depression, anxiety, like everything hit me at once, and all of a sudden it became something overwhelming that I couldn't cope. And I was glad that I was able to get out of that through a lot of counseling and a lot of self-education around mental health. And now I am more able to equip myself with the tools to kind of prevent myself from going there, by recognizing the signs earlier on. Because sometimes when you're in it too deep, by the time you realize that an issue is happening, you are already far gone into the deep dark hole that it takes you 10 times the effort to get yourself out of that situation. So I want to leave you guys with that thought. If you can identify with some of the things that I shared, which I personally experienced, know that you need to be able to take time off to separate yourself from whatever identity that is. be open to asking for help. And in the next episode, I talked about a lot of the signs and symptoms, but really never talk about how do I ask for help. I think that was something that I struggle with. It's like when you say ask for help, us ask for help, but what does that mean to ask for help? We're going to dive into what help is available, how to ask for help. And for some people who are more prideful, and I used to be more that way, not because I was being proud, but because I just don't know how to ask for help, and I had to learn. And it's something important for women to be able to be your own self-advocate. And if you're struggling mentally with different challenges that I mentioned, and you are looking for an accountability partner, a cheerleader, I'm a intuitive coach, and I would love to help you get out of your stuckness. And feel free to go to my website at www.herempoweredlife.com for a discovery session with me. That way we can dive into the root of the issue and come up with a plan that's personalized to you, that will help you make a change in your life and know that you have a power to make a change. Well, ladies, you have a great day. Until we meet again for our next video, you have an awesome day and be awesome. Bye.